What is shockingly legal? It's legal for congressmen to commit insider trading. Even after 60 Minutes called them out on it and people were outraged years ago. Saying $2,500 cash back on truck commercials, and then in the small print directly below the statement, no cash will be given to a consumer. Another thing I never understood is how in some commercials, usually car commercials, it's legal to flash 1,000 plus words of terms and conditions on the screen for like a quarter second. 90% of the time the font is so small and blurry I wouldn't even be able to read it on my 55 inches HD TV, even when paused, yet it's somehow considered valid. A doctor telling you that you need a test treatment done. Then insurance refuses to pay for it and you getting charged the full price. The only person in that situation that doesn't know enough to make an informed decision is the one that gets fricked. Even better, assume your doctor is in network so services are covered, but he chooses to send some blood samples to an outside lab. He does not need to ask you first. That lab may be out of network. Now you're on the hook for the full price of the lab work without you ever getting any option to even step in and say no. Some of the methods used by the paparazzi. During the Leveson inquiry I was shocked at what the press would do to celebrities, or even parents of victims. The inquiry was set up after revelations about hacking the voicemail of celebrities, war widows and even a murdered teenager. But listening to the testimony of Kate and Jerry McCann, parents of Madeleine McCann, really shocked me. Photographers and the media would stalk her every day, often with her kids. One thing they would do is hide behind a wall and jump out at her to surprise her, then use the resulting picture under the headline as Kate McCann at breaking point or something like that. Oh, freaking course she is. She's lost her firstborn daughter and she's being stalked by the press all hours of the freaking day. The press would frighten her children, both nursery age, causing them distress. These are methods used on celebrities, suspects, and other people of great interest to legalize harassment and stalking that, if done by anyone else, they'd be arrested. And what's worse, in America at least it's legal for the paparazzi to use a drone to spy on you in your own home. I freaking hate the paparazzi. For them to use press freedom to defend getting pictures of some celebrity leaving the doctor's office just isn't right. Why the frick can't they use those aggressive skills of people who actually matter like politicians? In America at least it's legal for the paparazzi to use a drone to spy on you in your own home. Imagine if someone shot a paparazzi drone out of the sky on their property, skeet shooting style. I'm sitting on my deck, drinking some whiskey. I hear a low buzzing sound. I look up, and there's a drone. I try to throw a can of Lone Star, but it's slightly out of range. I go into the house and it hovers, waiting. I come out with a shotgun and blast it out of the sky. Maybe the cops come and arrest me, or maybe the owner just sues me for the cost of their drone. Either way, it might be one of the few times the NRA and the ACLU would join forces to give legal services to a defendant. In 32 states it is legal to have sex with a 16-year-old, but illegal to have naked pictures of the 16-year-old that you had sex with. How airlines can deliberately overbook a flight, basically like selling things they don't even have. Check the contract of carriage and this can work for you. I had a flight, they were offering $200 if you took a later flight. I said no. They bumped me and 11 others anyways, and gave $250 vouchers. I asked for it in cash, because I told them I'd probably never fly with them again. They told me they couldn't. Then I did some googling, and found their contract of carriage that said they could. It depended on how delayed I was, and I was in the 8+ hours delayed window, so I ended up getting 600% of the price of that leg of my flight in a check. I got a check for $1,216 for a flight I paid $460 on. It sucked that I missed my flight, sucked a little less because I got my trip paid for. Not legal anymore, but one time in Iceland, due to Ottoman slave trade raids, it was legal to kill anyone from Turkey. They changed it, but it was legal until the 1970s. Also within the ancient city boundary of York in England, you can legally kill a Scotsman if he has a bow and arrow on his person. This one is still legal as far as I know. Ewan, hold this bow and arrow for a second. Puppy mills. Yes, absolutely. This and dog fighting are absolutely despicable. I own a couple corgis and I remember one day I was just cruising through corgi videos on YouTube and I found one of a female corgi that had been rescued from a mill. They were filming her trying to walk and she just couldn't do it because she'd never been out of the tiny breeding crate. Ugh. Even thinking about it now makes me tear up. There are a lot of puppy mill videos available on YouTube, but I'd suggest avoiding them if you don't want to ruin your Christmas. There is something about a dog struggling to walk or just functionally shutting down because it can't handle any interaction that drives me to tears almost immediately. Dogs are intelligent creatures that pretty much exist to get and give love to everyone around them. The fact that certain people can actually break that spirit by being so abusive to them, I just don't even understand. This is a business built by keeping dogs in tiny crates standing or laying in their own poop while they're forced, repeatedly, to have puppies. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of puppy mills are operated out of Lancaster County by the Amish. Obviously that's not the whole of the problem, but it's just disturbing. Buying a puppy from a pet store that doesn't verify where it got the pups. Some stores only sell adopt-out pups from local shelters. Props to them is pretty much a guarantee that it came from a puppy mill. Obviously the problem is cyclical. Puppies that don't sell at a store are either used for breeding, killed, or dumped at a shelter. They are also notoriously riddled with health problems. The only way to stop it is to cut the problem off at its source while also spreading awareness about where dogs in pet stores come from and what the results tend to be. There are millions of dogs in shelters right now that will likely be euthanized by the end of the year due to lack of space. I'm not saying everyone should adopt from a shelter because I fully support responsible breeders, but I'm just saying that there's already an issue in this country without puppy mills continually adding fuel to the fire in the worst possible way. Puppy mills are businesses that traffic in suffering from start to painful finish, and they need to be dealt with more aggressively. According to the FBI's definition of rape, a woman cannot rape a man by forcing his penis into her vagina. She must forcibly penetrate his anus with her fingers, tongue, or an object. Holy crap, that needs to change. Texas. Owning a big cat. My neighbor's cousin had a tiger on his ranch. There are dogs and house cats. These make great pets. There are snakes and birds. Those can be great pets. Rabbits, gerbils, ferrets. These are the kind of pets that can be tamed and like people. Lions and tigers may start out as babies, but they will grow into something that can easily kill a grown man. They need fresh meat constantly, in bulk. That's expensive. There's a reason some animals are in zoos. If you're considering moving to Texas to try and rear your own big cat, please don't. Zookeepers work for years before they're allowed to go near such dangerous animals, and that should apply to everyone. They are wild animals, not house pets. If you want a massive cuddle buddy, you won't get one. Things really are bigger in Texas, hey, even the cats. Stealing from your kids. I'm 17 and bought a TV. My dad stole it and is planning on selling it. Nothing I can do. Bruh, I would totally steal that back. So wrong. The United States will accept kids who aren't even old enough to buy beer into the military to be shipped overseas and killed. Datura. It makes you hallucinate for days and have absolutely no control over yourself. You are blind for days afterwards. Very high chance of dying from poisoning since it's a nightshade plant, or killing yourself. Very high chance of dying from poisoning since it's a nightshade plant. Till tomatoes will kill you. Tannerite. It's a lethal, powerful binary explosive that explodes when you shoot it, and can be bought in relatively large quantities without much hassle. I actually don't have a problem with this. In fact, I find it kind of cool that you can legally buy a high explosive and detonate it. However, I find it very odd that it is legal to buy in such large quantities because of the components of the explosive. Generally, it is sold in the form of a box of ammonium nitrate and a box of aluminum powder. When they are by themselves, they are harmless, but when mixed together and hit by a high velocity round, they explode. One of the materials used in the explosive, ammonium nitrate, is very hard to buy on its own. This is due in large part to the Oklahoma City bombings, which killed over 160 people, and had ammonium nitrate as a key ingredient in the bombs. Ammonium nitrate used to be very easy to buy because it was often sold in large bags of fertilizer, but after the OKCB, you cannot buy more than a pound or two by itself without getting into trouble. But when you buy with aluminum powder, it is sold as tannerite and you can buy hundreds of pounds of it. Yep, that's right. Ammonium nitrate has been effectively outlawed in quantities of over a few pounds because of its ability to be used as an explosive. However, if you buy it with something that can turn it into an explosive, aluminum powder, you can buy as much as you want of it. Dude, you can buy 40 pounds bags at Home Depot. It's just been slightly reformulated to make it less suitable for ANFO bombs, and they added tagans. Everything is legal in space, at least as far as the Canadian Space Agency is concerned. Nope. Section 7.2.3 of Canada's Criminal Code covers spacecraft and crimes committed during or in relation to spaceflight. I come from a land down under and my superannuation was eaten up by fees. I stopped working when I got impregnated and 2 years later we moved to NZ. Had I known that was a thing I probably would have topped it up from time to time, but there goes that dosh. Was over 10 grand I reckon. Totally legal. The way campaign financing works, of how essentially you get meaningful face time with your representative only if you can promise a substantial contribution towards their next campaign, which if they're in Congress, is any second now. At least senators have a wall between elections and may actually help the little fella out here and there. Members of parliament being able to pick their own investigators to investigate the very same members of parliament for historic child freaking and setting up child sharing rings. Freaking disgraceful. It's legal, in New York City at least, for restaurants to pay their own credit card fees out of the tips of their waiters. Every time I finish a shift, a certain amount of whatever I was tipped is deducted based on how many credit cards I swiped. Just doesn't seem fair that I should have to pay for it. In the states of both Michigan and Texas, the blind are legally allowed to hunt. In Michigan, they're allowed to hunt without the aid of a sighted companion. Owning a tank. There's a lot of regulations you need to adhere to, but it's still shockingly legal. Can't have shells though. My grandfather actually owns a tank. He had two but scrapped one. The other is in a museum. AT&T's unlimited data. Unlimited up until 5 GB, then we will throttle your speed until it's barely usable. In the US, fricking the crap out of an 18-year-old. Shockingly legal considering you can't share a beer with them afterwards. In the UK you can frick the crap out of a 16-year-old and buy them a beer afterwards. They just can't buy it for themselves. There are a number of countries where simple possession of child pornography is actually legal. Production and distribution are illegal pretty much worldwide. However, you would have to think about the ramifications. If someone on Reddit linked a child P and you clicked on it, you would have to download that image on your computer in order to see that it is actually child P and you would technically be in possession of the material. Common sense dictates this scenario shouldn't be considered a crime. The new ultra bright white headlights in nice cars. Sure, the driver might be able to see a little better, but they are blinding every single other car on the road coming towards them. I guarantee multiple accidents and fatalities have already been caused by these headlights blinding other drivers. In the US, HID conversions are almost always illegal. Stock HID lights are legal, but they are designed to only shine down, so they aren't blinding. When I was younger and lived in the States, I used to date a dancer, wink wink. We were what, 19 and 18? Anyway, it was legal for her to dance in that place, but it was illegal for me to go watch. It would have also been illegal for her to go watch when she was off, because they served alcohol. Not vaccinating your child for bulls reasons. Frick your religion or beliefs. I don't want my kid who can't have vaccinations to die because there's no herd immunity anymore. Driving. In the beginning, cars were so slow that it sort of seemed like an okay idea to just let anyone who had access to one pilot it. Now they are death machines that people drive 80+ miles an hour, sometimes drunk, stoned, exhausted, distracted, etc. The driver's license exam is a joke, so essentially anyone can do this. It's terrifying when you stop and think about it. Being any agent going to just about any hardware store to get a 5-gallon bucket of hydrochloric acid relatively cheap. In 7 states and US, one must believe in God in order to hold public office. Arkansas, Article 19, Section 1. Atheists disqualified from holding office or testifying as witness. No person who denies the being of a god shall hold any office in the civil departments of this state, nor be competent to testify as a witness in any court. Maryland, Article 37. That no religious test ought ever to be required as a qualification for any office of profit or trust in this state, other than a declaration of belief in the existence of God. Nor shall the legislature prescribe any other oath of office than the oath prescribed by this Constitution. Mississippi, Article 14, Section 265. No person who denies the existence of a supreme being shall hold any office in this state. Pennsylvania, Article I, Section 4. No person who acknowledges the being of a god in a future state of rewards and punishments shall, on account of his religious sentiments, be disqualified to hold any office or place of trust or profit under this Commonwealth. South Carolina, Article 17, Section 4. No person who denies the existence of a supreme being shall hold any office under this Constitution. Tennessee, Article 9, Section 2. PDF. No person who denies the being of God, or a future state of rewards and punishments, shall hold any office in the civil department of this state. Texas, Article 1, Section 4. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office, or public trust, in this state, nor shall anyone be excluded from holding office on account of his religious sentiments, provided he acknowledge the existence of a supreme being. The Pennsylvania one actually seems to say that believing in God won't disqualify you, with no particular implication towards atheists. If you're an American, you're basically the only person in the world paying taxes based on your citizenship and not on where you live work most of the year. Remember that compared to European countries, we don't even get that much for our taxes. Yet someone from the UK with their NIT can go work abroad, and if they're gone most of the year, the Crown doesn't want their income, unless it's somehow specifically British derived. For example, interest on a UK-based account. Meanwhile, an American living abroad, who gets crap for his taxes back home, is likely to be unable to so much as open a bank account because the IRS demands that anyone doing business with Americans has to basically become an unpaid IRS enforcer. If you try to renounce, you'll have to pay an exit fee, and then be on the hook for federal taxes for 5 years. It's explicitly framed as making sure you're not renouncing to get out of your taxes, as though the government owns you. Even then, some taxes they'll say you're on the hook for life, and they'll likely bar you from ever re-entering the country. Amongst the various pretty outrageous things the IRS has done to go after tax cheats is to go after Canadians who, say, have American citizenship because their mom happened to give birth while in the US, but who have never been back after departing as an infant. Why would these people expect to have to file tax returns in a country they've never been in except as a newborn infant, when we're literally the only country to pull this crap? Professional clown Boris Johnson recently spoke out about this. He hasn't lived in the US since he was 5, but they demand hundreds of thousands from him. The crap you can get away with digital media and personal information. Here are a few examples of things that are completely legal and are being done. ICE stripping the encryption from users' emails, and in general monitoring them and tampering with the data being transferred. Storing people's personal information, including sensitive information such as credit card and home address info, unsafely, and failing to inform people immediately when such information is compromised. Devices, services, software imposing artificial limitations solely so that they can charge more to remove them. Sell refills. For example, coffee makers that reject non-genuine cups, litter boxes, and Lord knows how many printers that reject cartridges that have been refilled, and or don't even really need the cartridges, but refuse to work without them. Windows driver signing to protect the system from malware, really just to prevent you breaking DRM. Internet data caps, which the ISPs have confessed have nothing to do with network load and are solely a profit grab. In a similar vein, Devices which refuse to work if a certain feature is unavailable, for no good reason. This one is more crappy design than obvious profiteering, but still. Cell phones and tablets with locked bootloaders. Devices, especially those that handle personal information, with backdoors and spyware built in, even going so far as to literally watch and listen to you at all times and send the recordings to some remote system, and in general sending back information that's none of their business. Electronic voting systems running top secret closed source software. Not like elections need to be auditable or anything. Machines which are easily capable of killing people, such as cars. Running buggy software that isn't subject to strict regulation to ensure it's safe. More info. Devices which flat out lie to other devices asking for their capabilities and specs. Not so much a personal information DRM issue so much as a making things stupid and difficult for no good reason issue. Removing advertised functions from, or otherwise crippling, devices that have already been sold. The thousands upon thousands of websites and advertisers that collect your personal information and sell, or leak it. Cell phone contracts which don't include the phone actually working. Your phone died 2 years into a 3-year contract, too dang bad. Buy a new one. Devices, weed, every modern game console, with built-in unremovable advertising, which then gets into more privacy issues. Basically, as long as you aren't a doctor, the law lets you do whatever you dang well please with people's personal information. Sell them deliberately crippled defective products and charge extra to fix them, and make no effort to protect people's personal information, or even to ensure your product won't glitch out and kill someone on the highway, as long as a computer is involved. Police can legally lie to you, threaten you with arrest for something that wasn't illegal or something you didn't do, misrepresent the law to you, saying what you did was illegal, all in order to gain your compliance. It is up to you to know the laws to the ability of a seasoned lawyer and be able to stand up for your rights, and cops make it as hard as possible by being as shady as they can in their wording. Yet the police are now legally allowed to detain and search you or your property for something they merely thought was illegal. The police don't have to be perfect, yet you do. Civil forfeiture. Basically, cops can take your stuff if they believe it is involved with a crime. They do not need any evidence either. It's pretty much legalized robbery by law enforcement. I had something similar. I went out of town for a weekend and had my house broken into. Stole my laptop and guitar and other little things. Gave the cops the serial numbers. Wasn't expecting much, but why not? Then they asked about the 3 long guns I had in my closet, and loaded and locked. And I said they hadn't been touched and they were locked. Well, the police had a powwow and said they had to confiscate them as evidence because a similar weapon was described in a recent robbery, a once-a-week thing in the area, and took them as evidence in a completely unrelated crime. The people that I went out of town with me were right there telling them I was hundreds of miles away at the time of the robbery, but they weren't having it. I guess their thinking was that the robbers broke in my house, stole my crap, broke the gun locks, used the guns in another robbery, bought 3 gun locks, broke back in, and returned them before I got home. WTF. So they say when the case is closed I can have them back. When the case was closed they had lost them. I showed them my paperwork and they said they'd sort it out and call me. Never did. Visited the precinct a few times. They couldn't find them. They just took $1,500 of guns from me because I asked for help after a robbery. Never again. It's just like in that segment. Who stole the guns from you? Well, he looked exactly like you actually. I sincerely hope they're enjoying their nice new rifles and shotgun. The douchebags. What scam? Legal is still operating that you can't believe people are buying into. Going out of business sales for furniture store, mattress stores, used car lots. There is a mattress store near me that has been going out of business for the last 15 years. I'm convinced that mattress furniture stores exist in a quantum superposition of grand opening and going out of business sale. It is both and neither at once until an observer records the state, at which point it becomes one or the other. But because you know exactly where the store is located, you cannot know how fast it is going out of business because of your uncertainty about its business momentum. All around us, all the time, pairs of anti-discount mattress stores and discount mattress stores are popping into existence, forming the quantum memory foam that is the basis for the universe. Without the pressure of this quantum memory foam, strip malls would collapse. We can see evidence of this when a pair is created such that one half is within the sales radius of a supermassive furniture store like IKEA. One of them is pulled in and the other escapes as a hawking mattress store. Debt relief companies, especially the student loan ones that will charge you $600 a month so they can call your servicer, pretend they're you, and put your loans in forbearance. In the meantime, they pocket your cash and your loan balance grows. I'm not saying they're errant companies that scam people, but I had 3 maxed out credit cards during the recession and I went through a debt counselor company. They reduced all 3 cards to 1 payment and eliminated most of the interest, letting me pay off my credit card debt in less than a year. It was one of the best financial decisions I ever made. Just saying. Yellow Pages scams. This is how it works. A business gets a pamphlet in the mail that says something like confirm your information and it has a little Yellow Pages logo on it. The fingers walking publicly available for free use. So most people go alright, put in their business info and sign it. Then a couple weeks later they get an invoice for something like $300 for listing services and a lot of companies will just pay it without thinking. But the ones that refuse to pay of course get very upset and try and cancel their listing, but they have to go through several hoops to do so. The United States Postal Service tried to take a lot of the companies down for mail fraud, but they ended up losing against the companies. This is happening right now for Google Business. Someone calls saying your Google Business information is at risk for displaying incorrectly and you need to talk to a representative to fix it. I followed through once, full well knowing all the info is correct because I claimed the business and updated it myself, and they were going to charge $50 fee to update the info that was correct. I told them off and hung up. They call 2-3 times a day from different area codes throughout the country. Anything, pill, pump, one crazy trick that promises to grow your dong. I mean, let's be real, if any of that crap even kinda sorta worked it would have a whole aisle in Walmart already. FAFSA.com and any other site that tries to get you to pay for help applying for aid or scholarships. Hint, the first F in FAFSA stands for free and the official site is FAFSA.gov. And you can be your own boss and make $500k a year just like me. Look at my beautiful wife and home. It's all because of our morals and business model that we are a success. All you have to do is sign 5 people up under you to distribute our products. And for every person they sign up you will receive a percentage of their earnings. We are a multi-level marketing company. Sounds great, right? It does sound pretty good. A hidden cost is that you must alienate 95 of your closest family and acquaintances in order to find 5 suckers. FreeCreditReport.com. It gives you the illusion that it is free and is too similar to the government offered service. AnnualCreditReport.com. CreditKarma.com is free, loaded with ads for various credit services, but free nonetheless. Anything Medical in Goop, the Gwyneth Paltrow website magazine. I don't think I've heard one sane medical professional agree with any of the advice that is doled out. It just seems like a huge scam that is eventually going to come crashing down on her sooner or later. Tow lots. It's not that people buy into them, just that the way they operate is legal and you have no choice. Your car gets towed Friday night and they're closed Saturday and Sunday, but they charge you for each of those days when you pick your car up Monday, not to mention how much they charge. If you don't have savings, your car getting towed means you no longer have a car for a lot of people. My ex's car was towed because he was parked on the street during a snowstorm, which is to be expected. We figured out where his car was and I gave him a ride to go retrieve it. We're told it's $123. Cash only. Exact change only. He points out the credit card reader on the counter and the MasterCard and Visa logos on the door, and the guy said, "What part of cash only don't you understand? Between the two of us we had something like $125 and I would have just written off the extra $2 to be done with it. But my ex had me go to my car and scrounge around for change. We managed to get together exactly $123 and hand it over. He pulls out of his pocket an enormous wad of cash, adds our cash to his cash, and returns the roll to his pocket. My ex asks for a receipt and he tells him the printer is down. We're then told to wait outside and we can have the car back when the manager returns. The manager finally returns about 20 minutes later and wants to charge us for another hour. He asks for a receipt and we tell him we weren't given one because the printer is down. There was some back and forth between the manager, the guy behind the counter, and a third guy that I didn't know was out back, and the manager agrees to release my ex's car. I would find out a few years later that according to the contract they had with the city, the max we should have been charged was $120, and probably closer to $80 depending when they came and towed it after the police ticketed it and called it in. They also were busted for adding in various fees that they weren't supposed to be adding, which explains why it was $123 and not $120. They were charging everyone a $3 fee. If you had a receipt or a credit card statement, you could get that fee returned. The newspaper also estimated that during one storm the tow company towed about 120 vehicles, but only claimed something like 80 to the city, and the 80 claimed to the city conveniently had receipts. This all came to light because the tow company had a contract to tow cars from a private parking lot. They gave a cell phone to a homeless guy and paid him $20 for every car he called in to be towed. There was complaints about people getting immediately towed, so the newspaper parked a car there, walked off, and recorded the homeless guy calling it in, and a few minutes later the tow truck showing up and the driver paying the guy. Phone calls saying they need to talk to you about your computer, credit cards or student loans, or saying you won some big prize and they just need some info. Any business that calls me, frick off. If I want your product I'll contact you. Organic cleansing drinks. Your intestines naturally clean themselves by shedding epithelium, the equivalent of a tennis court worth of surface area, every few days. How do I know this? Cancer research biologist and my lab focused on colorectal cancer. That Juicero juicer thing that's currently selling for $400. It only juices pods sold by the company, won't juice them if they're even a day expired, and won't work unless it's connected to the internet. Though I'm not sure if anyone's buying into it, the fact that it's staying afloat somehow is baffling me. The whole glasses industry is one giant scam. The frames you pay $150 for cost the store like 12 cents. And the high-end Tiffany's and Tom Ford ones that go for $350, $500, most max $45.50. Lens prices are hyperinflated too. They get away with it because Luxottica had a monopoly on pretty much the entire industry, from manufacturing to retail to insurance. Glassershop.com, the first time I used them it was free. After I got drunk and broke those, I bought 4 pairs for $80. Pooper scoopers are a huge scam. For example, every time I witness my next door neighbor's dog take a huge dump in my yard, which they do nothing about, I go get my pooper scooper, the one I use for my dog. The problem happens when I try to launch it into the trash can, and the aiming system somehow gets all fricked up, and their dog's poop seems to always land right in the middle of the pool in their backyard. Every dang time. Pooper scoopers need their aiming systems recalibrated. Someone could get hurt. Your neighbor should be glad that turds don't make their way onto their car windshields as well. The Art Institutes. Absolutely no criteria for being accepted, and brings the legitimacy of all other art programs down. Former RE student here. All that BS with the dead vets so they could get GI Bill money, and when you sign up it seems reasonable some credits will not transfer. They never tell you that absolutely no credits will transfer. The rest of these scams are lame, but this will actually ruin your life. 96 credits and $66,000 of debt for nothing. Literally any multi-level marketing company, Advocare, Amway, Worldwide Dream Builders, Mind, Prepaid Legal, It Works, anything with Tay Lopez. Basically these businesses are all scams. They will draw you in with their photos of people with great teeth standing next to their Lambos and private jets. It all starts with some stranger asking you about your dreams, mentions some mentor or how they're entrepreneurs. They aren't. And how they started a business. They didn't. And they will eventually ask you for a coffee and not explain a goddamn thing. Long story short, whenever a stranger approaches me and starts asking me about my hopes and dreams out of the blue, I automatically assume they're about to ask me to join them for coffee, sometimes to talk about some opportunity. When I first moved to my new city, I met a girl in my building and we got along really well. I was so excited to be friends with her, and we went to dinner. She mentioned something about a midnight meeting with a mentor and it seemed Odd, but I kind of let it slide. We talked about school and moving and hopes for the future. The next day she calls me and says, you mentioned your school debt last night. I have an opportunity you would be really interested in. Let's have coffee. And I knew she didn't really want to be my friend. She wanted to bring someone else into her pyramid. I've been avoiding her ever since. Ticket resellers. I recently looked for tickets for a certain band. If you buy from the band or the venue, the tickets are $36. If you buy from one of the ads at the top of the Google search, they are $69. Also, you can get better seating for $100 plus. It's a punk show. There's no seating. I never click on the ad results, but somehow, I did this time. Total balls. Ugh, had to go through ticket resellers ReSTLY because they bought up all the Gorillaz tickets using bots within 3 seconds of them coming on sale. For me it's the magnets they sell for water treatment. The ones you attach to your pipes. Mostly take advantage of the elderly. The sell your house now for cash signs I see on telephone poles around my town for money. I don't understand how anyone could believe someone had 800k on hand, and if they did, wants to buy a random house for it. I'd say half of these are scams. Half are legit. The legit ones are usually businesses that are buying up houses so they can develop something else in the area in the future. Sovereign citizen gurus. These gurus claim to teach you how to get millions of dollars from the government by using pseudo-legal nonsense and red ink. People pay thousands for this. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Yup, sovereign citizens all seem to have dropped out of school at 12. Freaking morons who think the United States of America is a scam, and that a jury will never convict them. This water is harvested from the springs of insert exotic place, and was filtered using reverse osmosis to give you a healthy experience for mind, body, and soul. And it still tastes like tap water, you piece of crap. Filtered using reverse osmosis. Once it's been through RO, it's pretty much pure, so it doesn't matter in the slightest where it came from. Oh, and you can get a RO system for your sink fairly easily if you want it. All the MLMs, but especially the health ones. Look, you freaking T, my sister's got an ED, depression, and a learning disability, and 2 kids to look after. She's lonely and looking for friends and a job. Don't you bring your b-butt on her Facebook peddling your trash. I will take you the frick down. Televangelists. I understand that generally religion serves important psychological functions, but these hucksters are still getting filthy rich with a shtick that makes snake oil look like a bargain. Snake oil usually contained higher levels of alcohol and laudanum, and you could buy it on Sundays when many jurisdictions prohibited the sale of alcohol. Penny auction sites where you win an iPad for only $3.27, not including cost of bids. The concept is you buy 100 bids for $50, then the price of the item is incremented by a penny for each bid. So 100 people spend $50 and lose. One lucky person spends 0.50 cents and the $3.27 winning bid, while the site collects MLMs. Sales is one thing. Working in sales generally means you have a strategy, target. You ask all of the qualifying questions to suit the person's needs. In a multi-level marketing scheme, you aren't qualifying people, because instead, you see everyone as a sales target, or in some cases, everyone of a particular gender, say, Pure Romance or Mary Kay, or everyone interested in health, ex-Herbalife. They don't really have a strategy, and if you're not interested, they don't just overcome the objection once and let it go if it doesn't work. They continue trying to get you a used car. And not only that, but when you're dealing with a direct seller, you can't trust them. Everything they do or say could be a way to try and rope you in. For example, World Ventures tells their sellers to contact their friends and family to say, I have to show you something. Amway will tell people to recruit others by saying, well, it's a meeting for professionals. Like-minded people without saying it's Amway. They tell you how to interact with people, occasionally changing it up every once in a while when a certain saying etc becomes too well known or tired. So, how does anyone know that you The MLM direct seller is saying something sincere and not some bulls to try and trick them into buying crap or joining your downline. Sales is one thing because the idea is to get people to trust you. If you're in an MLM, no one can trust that their interactions with you are genuine. We guarantee a win with your first bid pack basically means we will let our bots ease off on whatever the least valuable item is. Weight loss pills. My cousin, God bless her ambitious soul, is a product of a negligent father and obese mom, so she did become overweight. When she realized that what she's doing is wrong, she's trying to reverse it. Maybe she's trying to take a shortcut, but it's not working. Vector knives. I can't remember the name of the knives, but there's a recruitment company called Vector that basically trains you to become a door-to-door salesman for knives. You buy a set for like $300 or something ridiculous and then sell the knives for a profit and pay the company back. Except if you don't pay them back in time, they charge interest or something. They tried to recruit me because a friend listed me as a reference, which apparently means the friend signed me up to call after call about coming into orientation. I legitimately just got a letter in the mail from Vector. In big bold letters it said $15 per appointment. The entire thing was worded to sound like a paid internship for college students. Even said that had a flexible schedule that worked with class times. Sending students home with marked up bulls that you, as the parent, are expected to sell to other parents, family members, friends on their behalf. Selling some coin as though it's a spendable coin that is 0.9999%. That's 4 nines of pure gold, 14 milligrams for $30 plus bucks. 14 mg of gold is about 90 cents worth of gold as an investment opportunity. That Thrive patch going around Facebook. B. You've got a caffeine patch on your jugular. Of course you feel like you could fight a tiger. It's not magic. College textbooks. I just spent $156 on a book for linear algebra that I will never have an assignment out of, and that contains the same information that every linear algebra textbook has contained for the last 50 years. Here's the kicker though. It comes with a sign-in code to Pearson's My Math Lab, which we need to complete the online homeworks in the class. So we were forced to buy this crappy textbook we will never use for an hidden password so that we can be graded online. Frick me. 1. Herbalife. Cutco. Insurance schemes. Basically any pyramid scheme. 2. University textbooks. 3. Selling your personal information for a free service, especially one that provides little to no utility. Mobile game markets. Mobile games strive off of microtransactions and many of them have this RNG summoning type style. People, myself included, can spend, insert your definition of luxurious amount of money trying to get this one really good or rare unit champion character and have it. Several patches later they nerf weaken what's great about the character and now you spent however much you had spent on is absolutely useless. It's absolute garbage how these mobile games legally get away with false advertisement with their RNG chance balls. Quote from the IAU regarding this. Thus, like true love and many other of the best things in human life, the beauty of the night sky is not for sale, but is free for all to enjoy. True, the gift of a star may open someone's eyes to the beauty of the night sky. This is indeed a worthy goal, but it does not justify deceiving people into believing that real star names can be bought like any other commodity. Source. You did not actually link the source. Carney. I got sucked into one of their meeting because the girl that invited is beautiful and we had just gone out on a date. She is so good at selling this crap to where the company bought her a Porsche Boxer. I got out of there at the end and texted the girl if she wanted to go out again the next day. She never responded, I assume because I didn't buy into her cult. Guys, state lotteries. I can't believe this wasn't already the top answer. First, they took over the illegal, predatory numbers game from the mob and gave it a new name. Then they made the odds of winning even more remote. Then they got a bunch of impoverished gambling addicts to hand over the money their families actually need every single day. Then they dumped almost all of the revenue it generates into lottery administration advertising, while lying that the money goes to help schools. It doesn't. But even if it did, seems like a pretty freaking regressive way to pay for the most basic of services that everyone deserves and ought to help pay for. Early access video games. People are scrambling to buy these games, then sit frustrated in forums going it's early access, it's not done yet, in defense of something they know just isn't true. It's like an abusive relationship. Love to tell you, but my stocks fell down and I am losing money. Life as a Nigerian prince can be hard. Can you help out a bit? I just need some money. Textbooks are expensive AF. Contains loads of textbooks for free. I've managed to find about 90% of all the textbooks I need for my course. Books.org. The domain has now changed to be OK.org. Exact same site, different name. It could very well be due to the traffic or popularity my original comment brought, or it could be some other factor entirely, but it stayed as OK.org for a good while, and hopefully will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Scholar Google Co UK. I still love this Google service for references and finding articles, but I barely use it to find free articles anymore. I have almost completely switched over to http://booksy.org/ which is provided by the same folks who host BOK.org. Show them some love and donate if you can. Hell of a lot cheaper than paying £200. This site has almost never failed me. But do note that Google Scholar is still amazing and a godsend for referencing. Use the two sites in conjunction. The Imperial Library of Tanta. I don't know whether to recommend this site since I'm sure you can find whatever's on it on numerous torrent sites that can actually be accessed normally via Chrome or Firefox. Tor is really amazing but perhaps not worth the hassle in this case. But do check this .onion site out if you're curious. It's really cool. A couple more sites and tips on how to get books or articles that have helped me personally as a current undergraduate, mentioned by a couple users as well. http://gen.lib.rus.ec/library-genesis. I read a comment that said it has more books than even Books.org, but I don't think that's true since, according to Library Genesis, Books.org is supposed to be a mirror site. But hey, if I'm wrong, that's even better. More books. Also, keep in mind that this site can also be used to find published articles. https://scholar.google.co.uk/Google Scholar. My favorite resource for finding free articles online. A lot of people I've met say they like Google Scholar, but it doesn't actually give you any articles for free. Just shows a list of articles that either I have to buy from another website. Sometimes the articles can be free, such as this one, which will take you to a website where you can freely download the PDF. These are the nice, simple ones. Sometimes it's a bit trickier. If the website doesn't give it for free, you can click all version below the article on Google Scholar, and you'll find loads of different versions of the same article and, hopefully, a PDF version as well. The PDF version will always be free. In my experience, it has been uncommon to encounter an article which has no free versions on Google Scholar, but sometimes, you'll just have to face the truth. There are no free versions. However, it's very likely you will find almost identical articles for free, and at the very least an abstract or a summary, so don't lose all hope. https://openstacks.org/OpenStacks, a website that lets you download a handful of books for free, and these books are amazing. They're not textbooks, they're more like revision guides. The best way to explain it is if Khan Academy was turned into books. Actually, Khan Academy uses OpenStacks as a basis for a lot of their articles. If you're doing science, then definitely check these books out. They don't do many other subject areas though. https://unblocked.cam/unblocked just contains a list of torrent sites. I only use the Pirate Bay, Kickers torrents, and I would recommend a VPN. I use Peer when downloading torrents just in case. I usually use torrenting for textbooks as a last resort. I almost never find books that I'm looking for in these sites. However, for famous books, torrenting is the best choice. The only reason textbooks are hard to find on torrent sites is because no one torrents them. They are not popular enough. The Imperial Library of Tanta, http://xfmro77i3lixicjar.onion, Don't bother clicking on that link if you're on a normal browser. For example, Chrome or Firefox. You need to install and use Tor browser to open .onion URLs. People will tell you all sorts of scary crap about Tor, some lies, some truths, but this isn't one of them. There aren't that many books on this site compared to Books.org, but a lot of famous books, such as the Harry Potter series, remain on it without being taken down. In contrast, a website like Books.org needs to take the books down from their site if their legal owner tells them to, which is why you can't download Harry Potter books from Books.org. I've managed to download all of Terry Pratchett's works, RIP. I will definitely be legally buying as many Discworld series as I can, and J.K. Rowling's plus loads more. The only problem with .onion sites is that their URL keeps changing from time to time, due to being taken down. So this link might not work by the time you're editing this, so you might have to do a bit of digging around to find the right link. That was quite long, but hopefully this helps some. What is something that is morally appalling, but 100% legal? SLAP suit, a strategic lawsuit against public participation. SLAP is a lawsuit that is intended to censor, intimidate, and silence critics by burdening them with the cost of a legal defense until they abandon their criticism or opposition. Scientology has taken this to the extreme over the years. Those charity foundations that are actually shady, elaborate scams that spread misinformation and take the money of genuinely good-hearted people. I hate any time I go into a store and they ask me if I want to donate blank towards blank. Nope. Sorry, I don't. I'd like to help, but not in that way. People think I'm cynical, but I don't know where that money is going. And I hear like 90% goes to the store because they sponsored it. Even if you've signed a do not resuscitate, do not intubate, DNR/DNI order and made out your advance directives, living will, etc., stating this wish, your family can choose to override this if your heart stops beating or you stop breathing. I work in healthcare and have seen the consequences of this several times, and believe me, they're not fun. We haven't had any miraculous recoveries on our floor, but we've had plenty of people slowly, painfully circling the drain while a mechanical ventilator pumps air in their lungs, while a machine pours tube feed into a hole in their abdomen to sustain them. It makes me truly ill to think about. Some of these people have held on for years with the lights on, but nobody is home. I hope your loved one, in their right mind, made the decision to not have CPR or intubation. Please respect their wishes. The thing about a DNR is that it's only really applicable under two circumstances: your heart stops beating, or you stop breathing. Treating either of these requires emergency action like CPR, intubation, etc., in order to stabilize you. I've read before that CPR in hospitals is effective in only about 15% of cases, which makes sense when you realize that these people are often very sick and that being under close observation means we can head off these emergencies before they occur. Once you're stabilized, you're either recovering or in a slowly declining state. Modern medicine can keep people alive for a horrifyingly long time, but everyone dies in the end. A living will is probably the more pertinent document for a lot of these people. It's a legal document outlining what care you would, and would not, like to receive in the event that you cannot make your wishes known yourself. As far as I know, you can be very specific. I don't want dialysis. I don't want to be on a ventilator for more than X weeks. You can do chest compressions, but don't give me epinephrine, etc. One patient even had hers say that she only wanted to be bathed if her husband or family could do it. But this doesn't escape the morally appalling fact that once again, your next of kin spouse can override this. It makes me furious sometimes that these people have gone to the time and effort to write out, sometimes in great detail, their requests for their care when they are close to death. And yet it loses all meaning if mom, dad, uncle Jimmy says do everything. Yeah, you might feel like you're doing right by your loved and people don't understand what goes on in these hospital rooms. They come in for a visit, stay an hour or two and go home. Meanwhile, the patient is frequently ventilated, raising risk of infection, possibly sedated so they don't panic and try to rip out the ventilator tube, which has happened and isn't pleasant for anyone. Being turned and cleaned by strangers because they often can't control their bowel bladder and unable to communicate. They have to be suctioned frequently so they don't choke on their own respiratory secretions. Have to listen when one nurse gives report to another and states how many times they were incontinent during that shift. They have to have their fingers stuck every 4 hours because we're still taking their blood sugar. They just look at me with terrified eyes. We had a woman who was completely paralyzed and couldn't move on her own, had no ability to communicate at all, and had severe brain damage. I am not religious, but I hope to God that she wasn't conscious in there somewhere because her only facial expressions were fear and crying. Her husband saved her even though she made it clear she was a DNI, and then she spent years in that nightmarish limbo while he brought his new girlfriend to her hospital room. One of my co-workers helped me turn her every 2 hours, as we do, and clean up her bowel movement, and as we shut the door she turned to me and said, "We don't treat murderers the way we treat these poor people." Corporations or other rich people tying someone up in court for years and bankrupting them in legal fees to the point that they have to settle or just lose. This happened to me after our apartment burned down from a cooking fire. State Farm hired a real butthole lawyer. We, family of 5, already lost everything we owned, were homeless. Then they came after us for $60,000. Couldn't afford a lawyer. The judge gave them the case in about 5 minutes. This happened in like 2013. My bankruptcy is still in the process of going through. The big shiny download button, which is really not a download button, and when clicked, takes you to this page which claims that my Mac has been infected by a virus and now I need to download their software to save it. Cutting in line. Ever since grade school, people would cut in line and know the authorities don't give a rat's butt. At school lunch, subway machines, restaurants, public transportation. Sure, you can call them out, but does the business care? You can challenge to shame them or drag yourself into a nasty verbal confrontation or even worse, violence. The only time I ever saw a real hero was in a drunken burger van line. A big rugby guy jumped in and everyone grumbled, but no one said anything. A little guy behind me shouted, "Hey, you pushed in." The rugby dude ignored it. "Oh, I mate, get to the back of the line." The rugby dude turned around and said, "You got a problem, mate, wanna go?" To my amazement, the little guy took the rugby guy up on his offer and off they went to fight. I was so impressed. This guy must have been a secret black belt in karate or something. Or so I thought. Less than 5 minutes later and the little dude came back to the line. He was holding his bloody nose. "What happened?" we asked. "Oh, he smacked me in the face. I didn't even see it coming." He knew he didn't stand a chance, but he went for it anyway, because frick that guy. I looked over and saw the rugby guy getting berated in the middle of the street by his embarrassed, angry girlfriend. He left and didn't get a burger. That little guy is my hero. I know of a guy who shares database solutions with companies. After the presentation, he then shows the prices for his solutions, which are always over the top, so they will not take his deal. If the same company gets another database solution from another company, he will then closely examine the differences. If they are too similar, he will sue them for stealing his ideas. That's how he makes his living. There is an attorney in Florida that used a publicly available statement, put it on his website, and through SEO moved it to the top of Google. Only he added a word or two making it his. All but impossible to tell the difference between the public one and his. He then searches to find who used his version and threatens to sue for copyright infringements to extort money from unsuspecting people companies. Taking an upskirt photo of a child. A guy took an upskirt photo of a 13-year-old girl in Target. A judge in Oregon ruled it technically legal, but mentioned it was super gross. In NZ, if 2 minors have sex, the boy can be prosecuted and not the girl. Even if the girl is 15 and the boy is 11, for example, the boy is technically guilty of statutory rape of the girl. Weird. Also, it's illegal for a woman to open a man's mail, even if married, but not the other way round. Although I can't imagine the courts holding that one up, surely. 99% of the alternative medicine business, big alt, faith healing rich preachers, spreading incorrect and harmful information on vaccines. exploiting legal loopholes to pay disabled employees less than minimum wage and as little as pennies per hour. Looking at you, Goodwill. Disabled employees pretty much have to be paid pennies per hour because they can lose their federal benefits if they are paid too much. It's a net negative to be paid minimum wage. Not sure about 100%, but in my country, Australia, 2 of our states, SAR and QLD, have a gay panic law, which technically allows you to kill someone in self-defense if the person is homosexual and comes onto you. Like, what the actual frick? Whoa, we have a fricking winner. Sort of the other way around, but I once had neighbors who would get their lawn vandalized by kids walking home from school. We lived close to a middle school, so it happened quite often. It started small and was just throwing a little trash on their lawn, then turned into knocking things over, tearing up the lawn, dumping entire trash cans, and pulling plants out of the garden. So eventually they set up a video camera to have proof of who was doing it. They went to the nearby school to show who it was and tried to contact their parents, and then the school yelled at them for recording the kids without permission and suggested they didn't take it any further because they could get in more trouble. For the video, TLDR. Those dang kids on my neighbor's lawn can do whatever they want and my neighbors would get in trouble for proving it was them. Paparazzi. I always cheer when Sean Penn or someone busts some TMZ buttholes camera over their face. I'm not really a violent person, but the fact that you can stalk someone as long as you have a press pass is pretty appalling. Plus it just promotes celebrity worship anyway. I know we have 24-hour news channels, but even with all that time to fill we can probably find actual news. Gerrymandering and super PACs. We've allowed democracy to be bought and sold to the highest bidder and is currently 100% legal. Having a child for the sole purpose of harvesting it for donor parts for your first child. At least in America, the parent can make all medical decisions for the child. This includes donating organs, marrow, or whatever else to their sibling. Fricked up crap. On a related note, there was a movie about this 10 or so years ago. The younger kid sued the parents for doing this, I believe. Things like Ticketmaster that buy up a majority of tickets to a venue then sell them back to people at a higher price. Bastards. Don't think that many would agree, but I am disgusted by rodeos. Animal abuse is illegal, but somehow an event where the whole premise is forcing yourself upon a creature that obviously doesn't want you there, to the point where they need another person designated to distract it from killing the person that was on him. They buck in their little cages, and if they start acting up, wanting to not be caged up, we shock them until they calm down. I doubt it will happen because I know what a profitable industry it must be, but rodeos really shouldn't be legal. Frick torturing animals for our amusement. I may be out to lunch on this, but helium balloons. We don't have an effective way to industrially produce more helium. As much as making little Timmy happy with a thing he's gonna wreck loose on his birthday and immediately forget about, or a chance to make silly voices for a minute, I'd rather we have MRIs a little longer. Civil forfeiture. Police can confiscate your money or property if they claim it's suspicious. And you can't do anything about it because legally they're arresting your stuff and not you. So the confiscated inanimate object would be the one to get to contact a lawyer. Praying for your children instead of taking them to the doctor to get them well. Then, often in real life in America they die. Reminds me of this joke. A devout Christian was stuck on his roof during a terrible flood. As the water climbed higher, a man in a boat came along and shouted, "Come with me, I'll save you." The Christian replied, "No thank you, I rely on God," and continued praying. The water climbed even higher, and the Coast Guard in a boat came along, its crew saying, "Come with us, we'll save you." The Christian replied, "No thank you, I rely on God," and he continued praying. The water was now up to his neck, and he was about to drown, when a helicopter came along, the pilot saying, "Come with me, I'll save you." The Christian replied, "No thank you, I steadfastly rely on God," and continued praying. Eventually, he drowned, still praying. In heaven, he asked God why he would abandon a faithful Christian. God replied, "What are you talking about? I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter." How the justice system perennially hands down ridiculously short sentences or even community service to female perpetrators of statutory rape, even when the victim is as young as 12 or 13. As a woman, seeing female teachers get a slap on the wrist makes me want to vomit. There are so many levels to how fricked up it is for a teacher to prey on their students. I worked with kids and I got really protective of them. I can't imagine how anyone can take advantage of people entrusted to them. Rape in general has very low conviction rates and very light punishments. Rapists are rapists, no matter the gender. No one deserves to have it happen to them, and no one deserves to escape justice for it. In my country it is 100% legal to take a video of someone performing sexual acts without their consent and post it on the internet, all with zero repercussions. The British government has declared seriously disabled people fit for work when they really could not work. Some infamous cases involved people starving to death, someone dying because they couldn't pay their electric bill to stop their insulin from spoiling, and people in comas being declared fit for work. Over 3,000 people have died as a result, yet somehow they have not broken the law. The guy behind it, Ian Duncan Smith, despite excusing his decisions constantly or outright ignoring them, quit apparently because he was shocked at what the government was asking him to do, despite literally saying before he regretted nothing. He was replaced by someone else who basically continued his policies. Ian Duncan Smith is now on the forefront of the campaign to leave the EU. The man should be on trial in The Hague. But no, somehow declaring the severely disabled fit for work and leaving them to die in horrible ways is somehow legal in the UK. I was told I could walk 50 meters despite having been a full-time wheelchair user for the last 8 years. I started laughing hysterically when that letter came in because it was just so unbelievable. I lost my job because they removed the money that paid for my carer. I had to cut down my care hours, and my health went to crap, so I couldn't do my job. When I then applied for ESA as I was unfit for work, I was told I was fit for work as I'd worked in the past, despite letters from numerous health professionals saying that I couldn't work now. It doesn't matter what your many specialist doctors say. If a nurse from ATIS decides something about an illness they admit they've never heard of before your assessment, they know better apparently. The infamous cases as well are only those where the death is a direct result of a decision. Plenty of people dealing with this crap end up with mental health problems, increasing their risk of suicide. I played disability sport and all but a couple of us have had problems recently. My doctor, the most chill and professional person ever, actually lost his crap one day and went on a huge rant, including calling the gov a bunch of bastards, when I said how hard I'd found dealing with the system. To see such a normally professionally distant man so upset was really something. Politicians receiving money from corporations. It's a freaking bribe. How the heck do they pretend that it isn't textbook bribery? Some states still allow religious parents to pray for their sick children instead of taking them to a doctor, even when they die from easily curable diseases. Lobbying state and federal governments to enact mandatory minimum sentences for minor drug possession charges in order to fill your for-profit prisons. Fake scratch-off tickets, especially for Christmas birthdays. I feel the same way when a parent gives a kid a box of what he really wants, such as the newest game system, but the parent puts in a lame present, clothes, and expects the kid to be 100% grateful. Horrific and unnecessary animal abuse, tolerated as long as it's for profit. Fur farms, seal clubbing, fishing bycatch, puppy mills, leg hold traps, pigeon shoots, canned hunts, factory farms. The Wolf Conservation Center in Colorado also informed me that you can get fined thousands for tampering with someone's trap, because anything caught in it is the trapper's property, even if it's an endangered species or your family dog. A woman was charged thousands when she freed her dog. It went after food in a trap that was 5 feet off of a trail and got caught. The court sided with the trapper that once caught. The dog belonged to him and she tampered with his property. A woman was fined for freeing an eagle not too long ago. 2. These laws are ridiculous and in one, among many reasons why wolves are so critically endangered. peacefully, protesting funerals. I don't even freaking care if the funeral is for someone in the WBC who spent their life protesting funerals. Using someone's death as an opportunity to throw your ideology at someone isn't freaking cool. There is a system in place, at least in KY, where any person off the street can foster a mentally handicapped person and take them out of a group home. The company that you take them from basically employs you as a contract employee and pays you per individual that you house. I've seen companies that pay up to $3,000 a month. $500 of that you are supposed to use for rent, but it's yours nonetheless. This income is not taxed, for reasons unknown to me. Maybe because the money comes from Medicaid, which is gathered from taxpayers anyway, and you can go to the food stamp office and get food stamps because you technically don't have an income. They let you house up to 3 individuals, so you're earning anywhere from $36,000 to $108,000 a year and you are still eligible for food stamps. Student loans. Everyone harps on you to go to school and you'll do well, and no one tells you that there'll be just not enough aid to go around by the time you are there. And now you're less than 2 years from your degree and it's either give up on all the progress you've made, or sign away your soul just because you were encouraged to try to better yourself. Patent trolling. Pure extortion. Not only is it 100% allowed by the US government, it's actively encouraged and executed by the government itself. It is as bad or worse than mob tactics, and the government should 100% be held accountable for the disgusting tactics, but they just lay the blame at the feet of the people that they enabled to do it. Giving people the ability to generate money by harassing people who try to innovate is not ambiguous. They are actively supporting crime. Declawing cats. Yes, and it's crazy that it's not more well known how terrible this is. When we were getting a cat, I looked into it a bit, because I had thought that it was only bad because if the cat ever escaped it couldn't defend itself. And I thought, well, we don't have to worry about that, because we live on the 32nd floor. But nope. Super terrible for many more reasons. It's literally equivalent of amputating a person's fingers to the first joint. And worse than doing that for a human, because we don't suffer the same kind of constant emotional stress from missing the tips of our fingers as cats do from missing their main mechanism of protect and attack. It causes so many problems, and you'll generally just get a really nasty, bitty cat. And I've heard so many people try to argue why they needed to declaw their cat, and they are all, with one possible exception, bulls. Don't want your furniture clawed up. Don't get a freaking cat. Have a disease that make healing difficult or something else where you really can't be scratched. Don't get a cat. You have a small baby that you don't want to be scratched. Don't get a cat. The caveat for the last two being that if you already own the cat when you develop the disease or get pregnant, then I get that finding a better solution is a struggle and could be not possible. Though I'd also say that a declawed cat isn't necessarily a great solution to the problem anyway, because the biting still puts people at risk, but yay, it should just be straight up illegal for vets to do. Anyway, sorry for the rant, but since you posted it first, I figure you get how I feel. P. The way health insurance companies screw you over. Story time. I was born with cancer on both of my kidneys, and though I survived with one half of one kidney, it led to a whole lot of health issues during my childhood. I had to take countless medicines every day just to stay alive. You can imagine how much the health insurance companies disliked me. Eventually, a little before I hit puberty, my doctor prescribed growth hormone, which would help my body produce some chemical, don't remember the specifics, that I would need to stay healthy. Since my single damaged kidney wouldn't be able to keep up, a nice side effect would be that I would actually grow up the same size as my peers. The health insurance would not pay for it because they claimed it was cosmetic and not medically necessary. Okay, that's understandable. Growth hormone is usually used to gain a couple inches in height for most people. But then again, I wasn't most people. I legitimately needed this drug or I would face serious health issues again in the future. So my doctor, who was a very prominent and well-respected pediatric nephrologist, wrote up a polite formal letter explaining the situation and asking them to make an exception for my case. They refused. My parents were distraught, since the drug was very expensive and paying for it out of pocket wasn't really a viable option. My doctor, though, was completely livid. As Patrick Rothfuss says, There are 3 things all wise men fear: the sea and storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentleman. My doctor wrote one of the most passive-aggressive, politically correct but frick you letters I've ever read. My parents might still have a copy. I should check with them. Basically insinuating that the company needs to find some actual medical professionals to determine what was medically necessary, not some armchair textbook eaters who wouldn't be able to diagnose a common cold. There was some back and forth between him and the insurance company, but in the end they finally approved the growth hormone, and I started treatment about 6 months late. Luckily the only downside to starting so late is my lack of height. I grew to be only 5 feet 6 inches. 6 inches shorter than most other men my age. Here's a shout out to the best pediatric doctor I ever had. Hope you're doing well. The fact a burglar can sue the burglar if they injure themselves on their property. You can sue anyone for anything, whether you win or not, or get laughed out of the court. That's another question. So far as I've seen, there's only one case in America in which someone who was trespassing sued successfully for injuries sustained while trespassing. Bodine v. Enterprise High School was the case in question. A young man climbed onto the roof of the school, ostensibly to adjust a light so he and his friends could play basketball, and he fell through a skylight. The skylight had been painted black and he didn't see it when he stepped on it. There were a number of other mitigating factors. You can dig into it if you like, but there isn't some rash of burglars suing the homeowners of the places they break into. When it does happen, the cases are dismissed and the people suing are usually given a nasty talk from the judge. Buying a company, then stealing the pension funds from employees and retirees who worked there for decades. This almost happened to my grandpa. They had a pension, you paid in, and it paid out based on a variety of factors such as longevity with the company, how much you paid in, but, thing is, the pension wouldn't pay out if you quit before you retired, or some similar clause. Another catch was that the pension wasn't paid into by the average line worker, it was for management and office staff and stuff. New company came in and made things uncomfortable for everyone, lowering pay, crappy hours, that sort of thing, for everyone who basically made enough to bother paying into the pension, driving them out of the company and thus ineligible for the pension. But I guess the pensions managers were good at keeping things opaque, because they missed my grandpa. He was a hard worker and comfortable with his life, so he never really pushed up the chain or demanded more money, so he was the lowest paid person paying into the pension, and fell off the radar of the new management. The long and the short of it was he was the last person to retire who was eligible for the pension, and ended up getting a lump of $5 million, and I'm not even sure what his monthly payment was. Not bad for someone who made $25 HR. Ads online that led to spyware and scamware. Or ads that are malware. Basically, internet bad guys serve flash ads over legitimate ad distribution networks, and use the flash exploit du jour to take over people's computers who view them. Turn off your flash player, kids. Good browsers, Firefox, and I think recent Chrome versions are shipping without them now, but you should still make sure. Blocking ads can't hurt either, as JavaScript engines have occasional exploits too. The bottom line is that ad networks allow bad guys to execute code on trusted domains, completely breaking the same origin policy and the security it provides. What's something that's completely legal, but that pisses you off when you see someone doing it? Patent trolls suck pretty hard. With some notable exceptions, it's completely legal. My favorite is Nathan Myhrvold, the founder of Intellectual Ventures. They literally buy patents with no intention of using them because the patent may be worth more in the future. It's the intellectual equivalent to a first post, but you get paid for doing it. The guy clipping his toenails across from me on the trolley yesterday. Edit. Where I live we call the tram the trolley. Trolley is what we call shopping carts, so I just got an image of an adult sitting in the child seat of a shopping trolley clipping his nails. People not monitoring their children in public, especially when walking through parking lots. Don't walk ahead of them and hope they are safely staying close and right behind you. Chances are they aren't. Hold their hand, have them keep a hand on the cart. You are the one visible in a rearview mirror. How about the ones who let their 4-year-old run around crowded restaurants unattended? Oh, He's just saying hi to everyone, so damn dangerous, and I'm sure that in the US, if their little angel slams into a server and someone, child, gets burned by hot coffee, then they are sitting right next to me at a movie theater when there are plenty of empty, available seats that don't require you to share an armrest with me. We had a local 2-screen theater that was getting destroyed by a 4-screen theater the next town over. My mom and I went there to go see Mamma Mia. Now, this was near the end of this theater's life, and it was also over a month past when the movie had come out. We were the only people in the theater, right in the middle seats. After about 2 previews, an elderly couple comes in and sits right next to me. The wife then begins commenting with loud whispers to her husband. I got up and moved on down the aisle. This theater was not tiny either. It had quite a few seats to each of the 2 screens. I was infuriated. Being a dong about not waiting. If there is an established line somewhere, respect people's time. It doesn't matter if you have less items to buy than the other person. You don't know if the person in front of you is in a hurry or not, and there's no reason to think that you somehow deserve to save time more than they do, especially if the place is busy and you know they've been waiting forever. So don't freaking cut in line without asking. I think it is so rude when people just proclaim they are going to do it. I'm just getting a coffee. Sue steps in front. For some reason I get more upset when it happens to other people than when it happens to me. I refuse service to people who cut in line. During Christmas, the line at my store was literally front of the store all the way to the back of the store. At least 80 people waiting in line. Or to put it in a different perspective, our sales goal for that day was 50k. We made 95k that day. I got in an argument with a customer that tried to cut the line and justify it, and I had to bring the manager in to get him to shut the frick up because he just could not understand for the life of him why I would refuse to serve him when these 80 other people are waiting their turn. So why should he be allowed to skip it just because he only has a few? One time this other guy cut in front of this older woman and I got so pissed off at him that I just grabbed his items and put them in our go buckets for the employees to put back on the seller's floor, and I told the woman to come put her stuff on the counter. You can imagine how well he handled that. I didn't even grant him the satisfaction of acknowledging his rage. I just called the manager over and let them deal with it and ignored him and apologized to the old lady. When people purposely take advantage of old people and just walk all over them, I get really pissed off. That crap doesn't fly with me. People who bring 30 items to the express line of 15 items or less. They're usually the same people who pay in pennies and nickels too. Elephant races. You know, when a semi-truck tries to overtake another semi-truck, but doesn't have the power to pass while remaining under their mandated speed limit. So the two just kind of exist side by side at 55 miles per hour, while the rest of the highway jams up behind them for the remainder of eternity. I hate this so much, all because they are going 1 mile per hour faster. Playing a video or song loudly on their phone or tablet in a confined public place, like the subway, doctor's waiting room, etc. It's a policy at my job, transit bus driver, that we ask people to shut off their music as it can be distracting to the driver, and if they refuse to comply we can kick them off the bus. If they refuse to get off the bus we can then call the police. Crazy, but I've seen it happen. Groups of people who block sidewalks and the little ramps on them. Then just watch the elderly, handicapped, heavily pregnant person try to get past them without moving a couple centimeters to let them by. Same goes for not offering said people the seat your bag is occupying. Honestly, this is so petty of me, but if someone is driving around in poor conditions, that is, cloudy, rain, icy, fog, and especially whiteout snow, turn your freaking lights on. I don't care if you can see, we need to see you. I'm looking at you. White grey cars that blend into the road. Nothing makes me rage more than driving in unsafe road conditions, going slow and ensuring I do my part to be safe, stay alert for others, and then see some turd driving along with their lights off in low visibility weather. I do a lot of light flashing, which unfortunately is illegal. TLDR. Turn your headlights on even when you can see, it's for visibility purposes. Not petty. In NY, state law to have headlights on if windshield wipers are in use. Not putting away your shopping cart. It's a 20-second journey. How important is your life that you can't take half a minute to put your cart away? This is my biggest pet peeve. The worst is when they leave it in the parking spot next to the fricking buggy corral. It's another 10 feet goddamn it. I'm gonna have a lie down. When people don't clean up after themselves in cafeterias, dining halls. Like, would it kill you to take your plate to the washing station? Why are you making someone else do it? I always assume those people grew up with a maid or something tbh. Which obviously isn't bad, but somebody should have taught you down the line that the world is not full of free maids. Something funny my school does is that if you leave a tray they will watch the surveillance video to see who left the tray, then take them out of class and make them throw it away. Getting angry at an airline because it's snowing and your flight was delayed. Do you think they are delaying it for fun? They are delaying the flight because they can't land the plane. When my neighbor leaves her dog outside all day when she's gone. When she comes home with a guy because she doesn't want the dog bothering her. Then all night so she can sleep. The poor dog cries all day and night. Just sits out there wailing away. I've offered to babysit her whenever the lady is out, but she hasn't knocked on my door yet. Some people just shouldn't have pets. You could report her. At least some places allow you to do that anonymously. When someone tries to tell a professional how to do their job, or just generally thinks they're an expert at everything, and people who think that because they're a paying customer it gives them every right to treat you like a piece of crap, make unrealistic demands and crack the chutes when you aren't a miracle worker, a retail life. Hey, funny thing, it happens not just in retail. I'm a healthcare professional and I get my fair share of angry people for absolutely no reason. Walking slowly in a street. Extra points for being in a group blocking the whole width. Extra points for stopping dead without checking behind you. More points for walking out of a door in front of somebody and stopping dead, or overtaking somebody then walking slowly. Playing your music on the train at 5 AM. Yeah, I know this isn't the quiet car but it's 5 AM. Put on some headphones, you inconsiderate bastard. Poorly reviewing a recipe online when you didn't actually follow the recipe ingredients. This pasta dish was gross. I made it like the recipe says, except I substituted zucchini for the pasta, V8 and cornstarch for the sauce, and tofu for all the meat. Driving less than the speed limit in the left lane. In the UK, some police forces are charging these drivers with driving without due care and attention as the right lane, we drive on left, is the overtaking lane. Dated a guy once who would buy tons of food at expensive grocery stores like Whole Foods, eat 75% of the item, and then return it just because he could get a full refund. Drove me crazy. Church groups leaving a tip at a restaurant with a fake dollar bill that has paid for this with the power of God on the back. Sorry mom, but the power of God won't keep the lights on. People in crowded stores who stop in the middle of an aisle to have a conversation. Happens pretty much every time I go to Walmart. Stop going to Walmart. Your life improves. People who wait in a queue for ages to pay for something and only start getting their purse money together right at the point of payment. Seriously, you've been in line for 10 minutes, you could have spent that time counting your pennies out. Same goes for cash machines. I never understand what takes so long. Same thing for standing in line at a coffee shop for 5 minutes and then staring at the menu board when you get to the cashier. I'll have, a, tall latte. Wait, make that grand. And hold on, let me back up and look in the pastry case. How about a muffin? No, make that a banana bread. How about letting young children roam a movie theater while the film is playing? Recently, I went to see Moana where 2 moms were there with about 5 children under the age of 7. 2 kids with sippy cups wandered the theater by themselves, up and down the stairs and in the rows during the whole movie. Mom's eyes were glued to the screen. I realize it's a kids movie, but that's no reason to let any kids go where they want. Emergency exits, safety, etc. I expected some loud talking from the kids, but not that. It was weird. People who grab something off the shelves in a store, decide later they don't want it, and then just throw it on whatever random shelf they happen to be standing by. Pretty crappy attitude when said item is supposed to be kept refrigerated and you see it among cleaning products. Drivers who decide to pull out in front of you at the last minute and then drive slower than the speed limit. They clearly were not in such a hurry to get there, so could have waited the 30 seconds for me to pass. Taking your car motorbike to do something you specifically ask for. Go pick it up to find that the mechanic has done a bunch of additional things because it needed to be done or because you cannot drive without doing this or that. Happened to me just yesterday. The people who stand at the line to get on the plane when their seating zone hasn't been called. You literally have to elbow your way through them because the suckers can't wait their turn. And you can't tell where the actual end of the line is because it's literally formed in the middle of the group of these idiots, so half the time you end up cutting simply because you don't know where the end of the line is. Go freaking sit down. Get up when your zone is called. You're not going to get to your destination faster by making it harder to get the plane loaded. Seeing someone at the supermarket with a full shopping cart unloading at the 10 items or less register while a line of customers with 10 items or less stands behind them, waiting. When people stand directly behind you, breathing down your neck when you are ordering prescriptions at the doctor's hospital, anything else you don't want overheard. Happens most times for me. Normally some big sweaty Jeremy Kyle style woman that I wouldn't dare say anything to. However, the Jeremy Kyle woman was a blessing last time this happened because when she saw me being handed thrush cream, she just looked at me, smiled and said, "Happens to best of us, love." I smiled and then nearly tripped over her trying to get away from the desk. This one guy, when I was working the bookstore, they'd have clearance sales and also a 2-week return policy. This guy seemed to have been around enough to notice that the clearance items were marked down even further after 2 weeks. 25% off to 50%, 50 to 75% etc. He would raid the clearance section as soon as he saw it. He seemed to be around on the first day of it and always managed to get the cool stuff at 25% off, which is a good deal in and of itself. 2 weeks later, the prices are 50% off, and he's returning the items he bought and is rebuying them. Another 2 weeks and they're 75% off. He's returning and rebuying. He'd wind up repeating this until he managed to pay $1 for each item. What originally was 20 plus products and an initial charge of over $100, after 25% off, he'd pay 20 some odd bucks for. It pee me off to no end, and I can't say why. Just the gross abuse of the return policy in the clearance section. What? Clearance items are final sale, no refunds. Guy was in butthole, but store policy was broken. In the US, taking pictures of people in public spaces in order to mock them. It's legal because it's a public space, but it really shows how little empathy people can have sometimes. One of my biggest irrational fears is that one day I will be made into an internet meme off some unflattering photos some stranger snaps of me chewing with their mouth open. The sound and, sometimes if you're unlucky, sight of food in its primary digestion stage when it's not your own body doing it is kind of gross. This one is kind of particular, but I live in an apartment building and the main entrance is handicapped accessible. The doors have motors to open, but when you press the button and the motor kicks in, the door turns into an unmovable brick wall and you have to wait as it creeps open. Every time I start opening the door as someone else is coming in or out, they just have to press it. I just stare into their soul as the door slowly inches open. People who give you a stinking look even though you held the door open for them. I mean, frick those people. We need less of you. It just breaks my heart to do this, but I'm moving, having a baby, lazy, and I have to get rid of our beloved 4-year-old American Staffordshire Terrier mix. $150 rehoming fee and he's yours. Putting GoFundMe pages up to beg for money. Some kid just this morning put one up for $1,500 for a laptop because his got stolen. I get it. You need a laptop. Do you need $1,500 for a laptop? Are you not working? Those people who make big internet news stories by making someone else's life a heck. Like that dude about a month ago that paid for his speeding ticket entirely in pennies. Like he was just a total dong about it cause he thought he didn't deserve the ticket or something, so he took 2 big buckets full of pennies and dumped them on the poor lady's desk. Like, come on dude. Don't do that to her. She wasn't the one that gave you the ticket, you're just making her life harder for no reason. Purling rank. When you or anyone else is a lower rank at whatever job you may be at and has good ideas, but it doesn't matter because the higher ranked individuals think their way is best no matter what. It really just pisses me off when smart people are turned away simply because they aren't ranked high enough to open their mouth. Standing in a fire lane, as in parking but remaining in the car. At least in Massachusetts, it's only illegal to park in a fire lane if you leave the vehicle. However, I work security at a strip mall, and part of my job is keeping the fire lane clear. Friggin' people, all day long. All I do is chase them out. Co-workers who let fly 2 men silent but deadly farts in the office. Co-workers who pop their gum noisily in the office. I'm going to cheat and post too, espousing anti-vax BS and protesting gay people at funerals. Don't get me wrong, I still support free speech, but that simply means what they say is not technically illegal. It doesn't mean I have to like it. I just think the alternative to free speech is even worse, so stupid opinions like that are the price we pay. People who bring 30 items to the express line of 15 items or less. They're usually the same people who pay in pennies and nickels too. In Texas I got to watch this at an incredibly busy Walmart. Man pushes up cart with 30 items. Cashier, that is more than 20. Man, so, cashier, find another line. Man, but I already waited in this one. Cashier, not as long as you should have. I ain't ringing you out. This is the express lane and you knew it. Find another line. This continued for a few minutes until the man ended up ditching his cart and leaving. It was delightful. It's even worse when they do that crap on purpose. I worked at a country club that always had some banquet or group function going on, and our manager over that side of things would pull this crap. He'd tell us everything the party was allowed to have, and if anyone asked for anything else, we were to tell them no. Stick to the banquet sheet. Inevitably, someone would come up and make a request that wasn't on the sheet. We'd say no. They'd demand to speak to a manager. And this guy comes to save the day. Of course we can do that. Who told you we couldn't? We'd get sold out by the manager, who got to reprimand us in front of the guests and be the hero. Was really fun when we decided we were tired of his crap. First, a little about the hierarchy of the country club. Banquet staff answered to the banquet captain, who answered to the catering director, who answered to the operations manager. The operations manager was basically over all food and beverage aspects of the club, so he did banquets, formal dining room, and pub. This guy was the operations manager. Fortunately, this guy wasn't around all that often, but when he was, this behavior was a given. We're hosting bunko night for some women's organization, and the spread was pretty basic, particularly the beverages, water, iced tea, and soft drinks. Lady wants an apple juice or something not on the banquet sheet, and of course we're told to say no. So the girl working the banquet says she isn't allowed to get anything that isn't already out there. Lady is upset, wants to speak to her manager. Common behavior at country clubs. Banquet captain starts to come over, but so does the OM, operations manager. Banquet captain knows what's next, so he veers off to go get the banquet sheet and the memo from the OM about not deviating from the banquet sheet. I should point out that the banquet captain is a short Mexican guy who just happens to be the king of snarky passive aggression. Banquet captain approaches OM and the lady. OM tells banquet captain to get her the juice, and banquet captain says with a straight face, but your memo here says we can't get anything that isn't on the banquet sheet. And the banquet sheet doesn't have juice. Banquet captain never flinches, looks 100% serious, and OM is fuming because he was just called out in front of a customer. OM snatches the memo from the banquet captain and yells at him to go get juice. Banquet captain just stands there saying, but you told us we couldn't. Bunko lady is just standing there awkwardly, confused and sheepishly trying to get out of this escalating situation. At this point, all professionalism went out the window. Most of the banquet staff had been dealing with this for a long time, and had pretty much all reached the point where they weren't going to just quit, but they wouldn't shed a tear if they were fired. They treated the guests well, because it wasn't their fault. But as soon as OM started yelling at the banquet captain in the middle of this bunko night about how he was the boss and banquet captain had to do what he said, the rest of the staff just snapped. Everyone stopped what they were doing and surrounded the OM, telling him they weren't tolerating this crap anymore, and calling him out on everything he does. OM yells about everyone being fired and storms out of the banquet hall. Banquet captain tells him that he demands the situation be reviewed by the general manager and HR. Everyone just goes back to work, and bunko night resumes. I was stuck behind the bar while all of this was happening, but I did get to explain the situation to the event hostess. Later that night, the GM and the club accountant HR manager show up, and we can hear OM yelling about this out in the hallway. GM, OM, and HR come in, and a few of the bunko ladies are still there, so they pull everyone off to the side to get their story. GM always sides with OM, and HR usually does, so we were pretty certain what was going to happen. But then the bunko ladies, including Juice Lady, stepped in and complained about how unprofessional OM was and how they didn't want to see him around any of their functions again. In the end, everyone kept their job, and OM was banned from interfering with banquets. Cause with extremely bright lights that seemed like high beams. Seriously, is that necessary? Oh man. There was this one time that I was driving at night and at a red stoplight. Then this car comes up in front of me and stops at the red light on the other side with his bright but high beams on. So what do? I flick my high beams on and off to let them know that theirs was on. What happened next was unspeakable. My entire vision was filled with the fluorescent bright whiteness of 1,000 suns. It turned out they turned theirs on for real. Yeah, I don't like that either. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.